Shabbat Shalom. So, like many of you, on October 7th, we woke up that day. It was my son's birthday the day before. Those are not my grandchildren running around, by the way. Those are my children. Aunt Jan is having her son watch them now. So October 7th happened, right? And like you, I was sad, I was devastated, and I was angry. And I was so upset about what was going on in Israel, our Jewish homeland, with our family. And immediately, I wanted to go. But apparently, when you are married and you have two young children, it's not always as easy as one would think. So I made a deal with my wife that I would wait 30 days, right? We would wait 30 days. And on the 30th day, I bought my ticket and I went to Israel. It was about 2 weeks I've been home. So it was about 3 weeks ago that I was in Israel. And I left on a Wednesday afternoon, and I flew out of Newark, Tampa to Newark. And when I got to Newark, we landed, and I had my Israeli shirt on, I had my bracelet on, I had my necklace on that said, "Bring them home now." And they wouldn't let us off the plane in Newark. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. So then the police came on the plane, right? Security came on the plane. And apparently somebody on the plane, this is the way to Newark, not even to Israel, somebody had wrote an anti-Israel threatening message in the bathroom on the window, right? I hadn't even left yet. I'm thinking, like, what kind of world are we living in? I didn't write about that story, but it was amazing to me how important it was, with everything going on in our country and in the world, to stand together with our brothers and sisters in Israel at this time. So I flew out of Newark. I got to the, where'd the rabbi go? Did the rabbi leave? All right, I'm not, until the rabbi comes back, I'm not going to talk. No, I'm just kidding. But I got to security, right? So security, everybody, most of us been on El Al. Have you been on an El plane? So is there anybody from Israel here? Okay, thank you. So you just keep smiling and looking with me, and we'll have chazak, right? What do you state? Do you know the Shtaim Shalosh thing? Do you know that? Shtaim Shalosh? Shager. All right, we'll talk about that later. But, so I got to security, and the Israel security, you seem a little bit higher than even normal, right? And it's usually a lot of security. So I go right to the security, I go to this lady, I'm thinking that would be easier. She goes, "What's your rabbi's name?" I go, "Rabbi K." And she's like, "That your rabbi's name is Rabbi K?" And I was scared to say it because I certainly couldn't spell it. So she goes, "Where do you go to synagogue?" I go, "Rosh Shalom." And then immediately I start to cry, like I am now bawling. And she was like, "Sir, why are you crying?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to Israel, and I'm going to Israel." And then she goes, "Well, I only have one more question." She goes, "Do you have any more of those bracelets that you're wearing?" And I said, "Yes, of course." So I gave everybody bracelets, and I went to Israel, and really it was a Mark Wright mission. I have family in a place called Modi'in and Reut, and that's where I stayed with my family. My best friend and Israel's sister, her name is Tal, picked me up at the airport, and I showered, and we went right to Jerusalem. And people asked me, how did it feel? And it kind of felt like it was a Shabbat, like very quiet, very closed, but more people than ever, soldiers and people, walking around with their guns on. So I got to Israel, I showered, I went to Jerusalem, I went to a shiva immediately for a young girl, I think she was 19 years old, Rose Lupin. Rose had been murdered on that Tuesday, right? We've been to the Old City, all of us, right? We've been to the Old City, and if you walk through the Jaffa Gate, and you walk towards the wall, you go through the Armenian Quarter, you know where the police station is? Literally right there. So she was stabbed to death by some Arab kid who killed her on that Tuesday. My family from Atlanta knows her parents, knows her aunts and uncles, so I met her father, and I met her aunt, and I met her grandfather, and there were no words. And I just told them who I was and why I had come to be with them and to pay my respects, to their daughter and to their family. And I cried again. I did a lot of crying. So this was Thursday night. On Friday morning, I've been doing something with my Israeli family. We've been delivering challahs on Shabbat. Today we delivered 400 challahs as well, with donations from my friends and family. We donated 240 at an army base somewhere near Beersheba, and they donated the rest to somebody in Herzliya who gave them out. But on that Friday morning, I got up about 5 o'clock. I went to the bakery where my friend's friend, owns the bakery. His name is Ido, and he never realized that his name is actually Dough, and he owns a bakery, but I guess Ido in Hebrew. But I didn't really make the bread. I took it out of the oven, because to make the bread, you got to get there a lot earlier. And then we drove all the way to Mitzpeh Ramon, right? So we drove to an Air Force base in Mitzpeh Ramon, which is in the south of Israel. I had literally just been to Israel this past summer, with my wife and with my kids, and it was obviously a world of difference. And I met this nice young lady. She was 31. She was pretty cute. And we talked for a minute, and I started unloading the challahs, and I asked her if we could take a picture, and she was like, absolutely no pictures. She didn't want us to show her face. I said, well, why can't, what's the big deal? She goes, I'm an F-16I pilot, right? So I just thought that she was some nice young lady from the base, but she is I don't know if you could say bad, in synagogue. So those are my two children over there. Hello, children. So I met this pilot, and we gave her 240 challahs, and we took some pictures with some other guy who was not a pilot. And we left there, and then we picked up another batch of challahs, and we donated those to some people in the north. And these people come from all over the north. They come from places that were displaced, the kibbutzim near Gaza, and we just sat and we gave out these challahs. So we gave out 480 challahs. This was the Friday morning that I was there, right? Am I changing the world? No, but am I making a mitzvah of giving somebody a challah on Shabbat? I think so, and it was really special. Then we went to lunch. I have a very good friend that I've known from my father, who was friends with his father, and we're going to go southern Tel Aviv. I'm so hungry. Remember, I've been up since 5 in the morning. I just got to Israel. I'm a little jet-lagged. And we sit down, and we have, the whole Israeli spread, right? So literally before I can put one bite into my mouth, the sirens go off, right? And you can hear the sirens, and I'm the only one that's really like a light jog. I'm a light jog, and everybody else is just kind of walking, because you have 90 seconds, when you're in Tel Aviv, to get to the bomb shelter. And when you hear from the bomb shelter, you hear these it's kind of like this kind of sound. And those are the rockets from Gaza, right? Nobody is overly concerned. They're just thoughtfully concerned. Mothers with children seem to be, moving a bit faster or taking care of their children, because you could see the worry on their children's face. And then you hear the Iron Dome, boom, boom, and it kind of rocks you, right? It kind of shakes you a little bit. And literally it was almost directly above. When we came out, you could just see where the explosions were, directly above where we were. And I can't say I was really scared. I was, thoughtfully concerned for sure. And then, again, I'm 58 now, so I had to go back to the house, took a little bit of a nap, and then I went to a Kabbalat Shabbat service in Tel Aviv. And when I got to Tel Aviv, I went to, it's in Dizengoff. It's the Circle. What is it called? You know what I'm talking about? It's a big fountain or something like that in Dizengoff Street. And they had a memorial there for the people that had been killed and the people that were kidnapped. And then, when I went to the service, it was a service by the Tel Aviv Museum, and it was for the families of the hostages, right? So it was the first time that I had seen these families, some of the families at least. And what I was struck by is that, thankfully some have been released. But when I got off the plane that day before, and if you've been to Ben Gurion, you know that there's that long hallway. You know what I'm talking about? You kind of go through security. There was nobody in security. And there's this long hallway, right? And there's nobody at all in the hallway, right? All you see when you walk down the hallway on both sides are the pictures of the mothers and the fathers and the children that were killed. It's not 240. That's just a number, right? But it's people, right? It's our friends and our family. Everybody that we know knows somebody in Israel that has lost somebody in the war on October the 7th that has been kidnapped. And again, so when I went Friday night, that's 3 weeks ago tonight, I sat in Tel Aviv. You see the long table, right? And you walk around, and a lot of people, they want to keep the hostages, the families front and center, and think that they're doing that. But I met a man. He was with his 3 other children. I just shook his hand. Again, there are no words, right? What do you say? You say, my name is Mark Wright. I'm from Tampa, Florida. I literally just came to I left my wife and children just to stand here to be with you. And he was there, and he did the Friday night prayers. He literally said the Kiddush last Friday when I was there that Friday night. And you can hear on the video that I have, like my name. So again, I met a lady who's best friends with the parents of the little girl Noam, 12 years old. She's supposed to have her bar mitzvah. So Noam also, thank God, was released this week. I also met, this is again just 3 weeks ago, I met the parents, excuse me, I met the uncle of the little redheaded boys, right? The 2 boys, and I'm just going to say their names to make sure that I say it correctly. The little boys' names are Kafir Bibas and his brother Ariel, 10 months and 4 years old. And I met their uncle, and the same thing. He literally hugged me. I could not get the words out of my mouth when I saw them, because I told him that in my office I had pictures of his nephews, their pictures in on my office window. And he hugged me. I don't think we really exchanged any words. We took a picture together. And those are the children that were apparently, Hamas reported, that were killed along with their mother, this week. Every time that I did something, you would have moments of elation where it was so meaningful. I met, I still had to eat and I still had to drink, right, a little. I was in Israel. I met these group of soldiers. Wherever I went, I tried to give hugs out, challahs out, soccer balls out, popsicles out. And I met these group of soldiers who are on Miluim, right? Everybody knows that those aren't the soldiers that are literally these young boys that are 18 to 19, and young women, of course. But these are soldiers that are a bit older. And I met this group of soldiers. One of them was a very big guy, kind of burly. He gave me a hug immediately, very strong. He reminded me of a friend of mine. He looked like the Jew Bear, this guy. And I said to him, I go, we back in America say never again, right? Right, we say that. Oh, never again is now, right? We say it. But because of what they do in defending us, they ensure that we will never be defenseless again, right? Could you imagine where we were if we didn't have the IDF in the state of Israel? And I have some other friends who would have really liked to meet this person, but everywhere I went, I met these soldiers. I just told them where I was, and all they said back to me was, Kol Kavod, welcome home, right? So if you can't think that, again, I didn't cry in front of the soldiers, but it was so meaningful and moving. On Saturday, my cousin, she is 20 years old, she just turned 20, and she is an observer. I don't know how you say it in the Army, what her job is, but she's an observer. That she was trained, that she was on the Lebanese border to just a few days before I got there. And they moved her from the Lebanese border down to a base in Haifa, right? And she went and she trained with these other group of young women, right, who took a right turn, or they went south and she went north. And her friends, not necessarily her best friends, but people that she had trained with, were doing the same job. They were watching the cameras in Gaza on the morning of October the 7th. 20 of them were murdered. 4 of them were kidnapped, and they're soldiers, so they have not been released. So, but for the grace of God, my cousin went north to the Lebanese border. I left that day, and we were driving out, and again, it was still meaningful being there, and this whole caravan of soldiers and army cars came right next to us. So I was in the front seat, and I took as many of my stand with Israel as I could. I reached out the window and I screamed out, I'm Israel Chai, I'm Israel Chai. And like the guy from the driver, he took all the bands and I held his hand. I was holding his hand. And I said to him, I'm Israel Chai. And he was screaming out, I'm Israel Chai. And he was, moved and I was moved. And then I said, I will never let go of your hands. And then the light turned green and they pulled off. But I still, feel like I'm holding his hand. And this was like the spirit of Israel, right? This is who we are, right? You can go up to, obviously here in America, the military, they protect us and we're free because of the men and women who serve in the United States military. But I don't know, maybe it's a little different because they are my brothers and they are my sisters. And for some of us that are a little older, they are our sons and they are our daughters, right? So this was Saturday. Saturday night, I went back to Tel Aviv. There was a rally out of like 40,000 people in Tel Aviv that night. And I don't speak Hebrew. My Hebrew's not very good. But you could hear the voices of the mothers and the fathers talking. I don't know if we could fathom the idea of a child being kidnapped, right? And what these children were going through and what we're hearing now about what was going there. And so that was Saturday night. I went there and I went out, to dinner with my friends. And wherever we went, people were very kind. Nobody was talking about the judiciary. Nobody was talking about anything other than we are united. And how do you say it? Is that how you say it? That we will win, right? That is the only conversation, right? People say, well, what do you think? You know, should they have known? Should the IDF have done something? Nobody's really talking about it, at least not so much publicly, right? So to me, that was Saturday night. On Sunday, I volunteered because so many of the workers either flew back to Thailand and left, or are now have been called up. And on Sunday, I worked in the strawberry field. Not very well, but I tried to volunteer in the strawberry field. That afternoon, I went to a place in the town called the Park Hotel. You've heard of the Park Hotel? Do you remember that in 2002, is that right, Doc? Around 2002, there was the Passover bombing in Netanya, where all the people were killed. So I went back to the Park Hotel. I'd been there once before after the bombing, and a group of Ethiopian only that had been in Israel for about a year or two had been moved from their home near Gaza to the hotel. And we just met these kids, and we gave out soccer balls, and we gave out footballs. I gave out Advil to the guys at the front desk, and there were literally 100 kids running around with soccer balls. And then on Sunday night, I went to a concert. I have a friend of mine, his name is Hanan Novel. If you were over 60 in Israel, or maybe over 70, you would be very impressed that I'm friends with Hanan Novel. Anybody else? You not so much. But I went to a concert with Hanan Novel, and it was in Tel Aviv for a kibbutz called Nir Am. Am I saying that right? Yeah. Kibbutz Nir Am, also very, very close to Gaza. But they did not suffer the losses because, they didn't, let me tell you this, just want to make sure I have her name right, because I think this respectfully. There was a 25-year-old intrepid young woman named Inbar Lieberman. So Inbar Lieberman was on duty that day, and she was in charge of security for this kibbutz. And she, more than anybody else, knew that something was not right. Although it was Shabbat morning, Simchat Torah, she called up everybody from the kibbutz that was on, I guess, the guard duty. And because of her, because of this 25-year-old, she killed 5 terrorists herself, and they killed dozens more. But really because of her, Niram was for the most part spared in terms of losses. Now, these people were friends with all those other people, and they had many losses, but this young lady saved the kibbutz. So I went to a concert with them. My friend let me talk, and I just basically told them that it was one of the greatest honors in my world, in my whole life, to be able to stand with them in Eretz Yisrael, and to hopefully be able to help them rebuild, and to be with them one day soon for Shabbat in their kibbutz. And it was very touching to see. And then all of a sudden, it's these moving experiences. And then I met this lady, and her nephew, a 19-year-old soldier named Idan Alexander. Say it, Idan Alexander. And he was kidnapped. You saw it on TV. They were on the Today Show, the family. They were from New Jersey. He was a lone soldier, I believe. And he's still in Gaza, right? And so all of a sudden, you're having this kind of moving moment, because I think, music, for some of these people, I think is somewhat of like medicine, right? So for just maybe an hour, or for an hour and a half, with all of this craziness going on, they had this, pause in their life that they could smile again. And then all of a sudden, you meet this lady, and you see that her nephew. So that's why I wore this shirt. My mother probably wouldn't be happy I wore a t-shirt to synagogue, but that's what we say. We say, bring them home now, right? We say, bring them home now, right? We say, bring them home now. And to me, I think meeting these people, it was so touching. On Monday, I'll just end with Monday, because then I came home that night. On Monday, we went through the Tampa Jewish Federation. Our sister community is in Ashdod, right? And I went to the hospital in Ashdod, and they give us this tour, right? So it's me and my friend, and they're giving me the old number 1 tour. This is the emergency department, this is this. If you're interested in donating, I'm like, I'm not interested in donating, respectfully. I just want to see some soldiers, some people that are injured, and I want to, meet them and stand with them and talk to them. So, it's still Israel, right? So first the one lady's got to get the other lady. She's a social worker. So we go to the first soldier, who's literally 18 or 19 years old. His name was Shmuley or something like that. And they let me go in. I hold his hand. I put it to my heart. I tell him how proud I am. I tell him how amazing it is that he defended our Jewish people and our Jewish state. And they're like, okay, you're okay. So we go on to the next person, then we go on to the next person. I met one soldier who was a psychologist, right, in his 30s. He's got a 1.5-year-old son. So I met his soldier, and he was injured literally 2 or 3 days before I got to Israel. So he'd been in the hospital for about a week. And when he was injured, his left arm was badly injured. He knew that his friend was with him, he tells the story. But he didn't want to look at his friend because he knew that his friend was seriously injured. And they flew to this hospital in Ashdod, and his friend did not make it. His friend died. And all of the people in I don't know if they call it a platoon or the group, but all of the people that were their best friends were in Gaza. So he left the hospital against medical advice, to go to the funeral of his friend, right? And when I was there, he was trying to put on tefillin, but he couldn't put on tefillin with his left hand. So I'm no great tefillin putter honor, but I asked him if I could have the honor of putting on his tefillin, and he said, you would be doing me a great service so I could wrap your left arm. So together we wrapped tefillin in the hospital. And from there, I was able to visit a few more people and some kids and children many children had been displaced, many families had been displaced. And then I went, once I was in Ashdod, I thought, well, I'm not going to make a big deal about it, but I went to a place called Sderot. Sderot is where the police station was attacked, and about 25 police officers and 5 other Israelis were killed exactly where I was standing. The building has now been taken down. I stood in the bombshell, or the bunker, where it was all shot up in Sderot. I stood there and just said a prayer, just to bear witness as to what happened. I stood there knowing that I wanted to come back and tell the story of what I saw and who we are. And I had dinner with my family, and then I came back. And I think that people say, well, was it worth it? Well, to me, it was worth it 1,000 times, right? I got so much love. I got so many memories, so many people that I will never forget. I follow so many now people on Instagram, soldiers that I met, that I wish a good Shabbos. I mean, my good Shabbos list is now about 30. And I'm not saying good Shabbos anymore, because I don't know how good it is. I say Shabbat Shalom, right, a peaceful Shabbos. And so that's what I'm going to keep saying for a while. And what I felt is that, did I make a huge wave of a difference? I didn't. But maybe I made a little bit of a ripple to make some difference for the people of Israel, just to know how much that we care and how important it is to not only talk about them and support them, but to stand in Israel and with them. And I think I said Am Yisrael Chai 1,000,000 times when I was there. So I say it to you again, Am Yisrael Chai, I stand with the people of Israel today and all days to come. So amen. Thank you, Rabbi. I got a minute. I got 2 minutes. Does anybody have a question? Does anybody want to know anything? We could always talk later if my kids behave. Does anybody have a question? No, that was my kid. Okay, thank you all very much. Toda rabah. Stam shalosh. Stam shalosh is that everybody in their 20s and a teenager, would you say yes or no to that, right? So when the Israelis bomb in Gaza, there's a guy in a very serious voice. Have you heard this, Rabbi? No. Okay. He says, Shtayim Shalosh Shager, right? Am I saying that right? So wherever I went in Israel, I would say Am Yisrael Chai, and what would they say? Shager. All right, thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for my blessing. Rabbi gave me a blessing before and after, so I made it home safe. How was my speech, Rowan?